Welcome back to Directly Current, presented by EVs for All America. I'm your host, Max Patton. This week, I'm speaking with our head honcho, Mike Murphy. He's been a very busy man this summer between speaking with Gavin Newsom about apartment dwellers and charging in California, to traveling all across the country in his iX, and shopping for new EVs all the same time, bemoaning some of our national policy and the impending doom facing our auto industry if we don't turn things around. We're going to talk with him about some news to catch up. There have been very cool ongoings from BMW in Germany with their Neue Class platform. They're bringing affordable, fast-charging, high-range EVs out. And stateside, we've got a very exciting low-cost EV platform in the works from the Skunkworks crew of Ford, where they're going to build an affordable pickup truck under $30,000 and much more. That's all good news for American jobs, but in bad news, in the last week, Hyundai's big battery plant in Georgia was raided by ICE agents who apprehended hundreds of South Korean workers staying on temporary visas. The legal issues that are up for debate, but it was somewhat of a national embarrassment for the U.S., given we're committed to industrial policy and American jobs, and these workers were upskilling our workers and training them on some very high-tech equipment. It's not a good look, and the Trump administration has already walked back some of its stances on that. Mike and I are going to muse on that and other things, so let's get into it. All right, Mike Murphy, thanks for coming back on Directly Current. It's been a while.
Hey, Max, it's good to be here. I've been a loyal listener, and you're doing a great job, so it's always a pleasure to join you. And I'm wearing my cool American EV Jobs Alliance hat here, available on evpolitics.org. I think we've sold 11 of these.
Love it. Let's bump those numbers up. And
anyone in your neighborhood with them, I guarantee that.
Yeah, it's a conversation starter. And we've got evsforalamerica.com. That's where this is. That's where the blog posts are. There's been a lot that's gone on since we last had you over the summer. Let's just quickly highlight your takes and reactions in case people haven't read it to the one big, beautiful bill, whatever we want to call that, and its impact on U.S. tax credits.
What happened was, tragically, and this is a lot of the work we do in our world at EVs for Everyone, EVs for All America, excuse me. We're changing our website and everything, so they're still getting me on message here. But the short headline is that there was a big political reversal, and the Republicans campaigned against EVs aggressively. And we've created this, in my view, needless partisan gap, which is affecting the consumer market and the regulatory agenda about electric vehicles. So they put a death clock on some of the subsidies to help people buy EVs and to help EV makers, particularly those who manufacture in North America, do better. So until at the end of this month, your ability to go lease a new EV and get a $7,500 tax credit will evaporate, although it's important to note, and you've noted it on the podcast, Max, the IRS just put out a clarification. You can go, if you sign a contract and put down earnest money, by the end of September, you can buy an EV that is in the pipeline, not in inventory. In other words, we're not getting a purple ID buzz until the 20th of December. It's on the boat. You can buy it now and still get the tax credit, or lease it, excuse me. You can also buy, and there are some credits, but it's more selective in their income limit. So those are going to go away, and it'll be interesting to see. I think a lot of observers are talking about the last 3 months with this pipeline kind of thing. I think it's more about Q1 next year, what it does to EV sales. And the only real history we have on this is when the Germans got rid of their subsidies, and I'll point out that, of course, the Chinese haven't. There was about a 27% drop in EV sales, but I don't think it'll be anywhere near that market here. The question is, will it be a decline? Will it be flat? Or will we have another year of growth? August was a huge month because people wanted to get the subsidy. So the question is, will we go backwards next year, forward at a slower rate, or be flat? My guess is flat to a slower rate. I don't think we'll go backwards in sales, but it's quite possible we could have a 5 or 10% drop in new EV vehicles. Now, meanwhile, because over 70% of EVs are leased, there are a whole bunch of EVs leased a couple years ago, and this will continue next year, going into the used market. Their lease is up. It's been 27 or 30 or 36 months. And so the used market is getting full of EVs, which means lower prices, which is good for EVs. So remember, the used market is twice as big as the new market. in units. Let's put it this way. Uncle Sam has gone from pushing to help us compete with China and help people who manufacture EVs in North America compete and get stronger to standing in the way. So I guess the last thing is, what will the states do? Some states that have very high EV adoption, like California, lesser but still significant in New Jersey, Colorado, another big EV state, they've had state subsidies. And the question is, what will happen with that next year? Right now in California, there's not much. There's a very low income subsidy, but it's very limited. Though we're working hard with the legislature in our C4 group that can do that kind of work, which is the American EV Jobs Alliance, to try to get a California subsidy of about $3,500 to $4,000 on a lease, which we think would have a material impact here in the largest EV market in North America by far. So I think you're going to see the action go to the state level, where there'll be a lot of innovation. But unfortunately, the feds are taking a hike for a while.
Yeah, and this is just, we don't have to reiterate the case for a federal tax credit again. Obviously, if you are irrespective of what's going on in China and around the globe, if you're a fiscal conservative, you would say, why would we need these in the first place? So the people in California were going to buy their EVs anyway. The industry was, I know, petitioning for a phase out. That didn't happen. So I'm sure it's going to hit the GM Equinox, all the vehicles that would have qualified quite hard, though. Like you said, California has got the tax credit. Colorado has a more significant one. It's $3,500 so far, with pretty low qualifications, but the Treasury is not unlimited for most state budgets, including
I think
here.
there's talk it's going to go away next year.
They're phasing it down, but now they're worried that even the phased down amount is too much for the state coffers. States don't have the budget to support all of these things. And to your point, the flood of EVs in the used market, I think that's nothing but a good thing if you're listening to this and you or your family don't have an EV yet. That is smart money. Like, it's bad for you and me with our EVs from 2 or 3 years ago, because we've taken a bath in terms of the depreciation, but it is spectacular for people in the market for
the used market is going to become bargain city. We've done a lot of polling on all this divide and EVs. That's why we're often influencers with auto companies on it. And one thing I've learned about the credit is not, sometimes states make a mistake of putting an income limit, and the feds did too, on the buying part of it. First of all, I tell everybody, lease an EV, never buy one. Now, most people say in the long run it's better to buy a car, blah, blah, blah. For EVs, it's better to lease because they depreciate, because the battery tech keeps improving.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to be caught on the wrong side of the innovation cycle. But if you are going to buy the used depreciated EVs, you can buy a lot of transportation for a very relatively small amount of money. For the overall cause of helping EVs grow in the market and helping non-Chinese manufacturers, the great thing about leasing is, from a public policy point of view, if somebody leases an EV on a 27 or 30 or 36 month lease, which is what most leases are, very few are longer than 36 months.
Yeah.
In 40 months-ish, you create 2 new EV drivers. The first, leaser, and in most cases, the used car buyer of the vehicle coming out of lease. And the nice thing about creating new EV buyers is, we know from a lot of our data that 80% of the people on total average who buy an EV or lease an EV stick with EVs. They become converts. So leases are nice because you get 2 converts in 4 years, which is, for the impact of EVs, a really good thing. But yeah, it's a great time to buy used EV. The other thing, and I know you follow this, is we're finding out the battery degradation was massively overrated.
Yeah.
So you're going to be able to, the biggest bargains on 4 wheels will be EVs for the next several years. And I think this one thing that can crack the other problem we deal with, dealers who don't really like selling EVs, they think they make less money. They're worried they don't get any service income, which is a huge part of the average dealer.
Mm-hmm.
But the used business in EVs is becoming a volume business. And your friendly neighborhood Ford dealer and your Chevy dealer, Chevy's doing well at the Equinox. On the used, just taking old Teslas and trade and other stuff like that at prices that could be in the high 20s to low 30s, it becomes a very doable deal. And because the economics of the used market is not the same as the new market, where it's factory prices versus demand. On used is what you buy it for and what you sell it for and what your spread, and can you make $2,000? And in used EVs, dealers are going to be able to do that.
Yeah, they don't need to worry about so much of the customer education. Most of the folks coming in for used EVs, they know what they want quite well. And I have to echo
Yeah.
what you said. It's a matter of like buy used or lease a new EV to protect yourself from that depreciation. I just went into a Volkswagen dealer this morning and I've got too much negative equity on my China mobile, the Polestar, but for someone coming in a
It's a
blank
sweet China
sweet
mobile.
automobile. I love it. But for the someone, looking for an ID4, for instance, they were doing $100 a month, and that's pre-tax. But that was with,
Yeah.
I think, a modest like $2,000 down. And we're not in the dealer business. I don't even need to say their name, but dealers know that people want to get these incentives before the end of the month.
Yeah. The ID4, I'll tell you, I leased an ID4 in New Hampshire. I didn't have to pay sales tax because I own a property there as an extra car. The dealer gave me an incredible deal. And that was a Gen 1 ID4. And I've driven that thing across the country a couple times.
Before the
It's a
route
pretty
planning
good car.
software and all the improvements.
Yeah, and the software wasn't that bad. And I'm a car guy. I've had a lot of cars. I'm happy to complain and grind. That thing is a pretty good EV. And the new Gen 2 one, you can go pick up for $100. Pound for pound, there's no EV you can get that lease deal on that's as good as an ID4. I'm
Yeah,
a bit
it's a
of an
cell phone
ID4
bill.
bull. Yeah,
Yeah.
the new 2.0 is great. So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, it is a good time. And I think states like California, I spent 90 minutes with the governor, poor guy, alone in the office with him. And I kept going. I had 40 slides there and the problems we have in California. And we're very big on getting some state money for multifamily charging install costs and stuff like that, which is a huge pinch point. Here's a quiz question for you, Max. How many people in California, where we're selling about 1 out of 4 new car transactions are an EV, battery EV, how many people in California live in buildings with 10 or more units in them, multifamily, condo, apartment?
That's got to be like tens of millions.
Not tens of, over 7 million,
Okay.
which is bigger than the total population of 30 other states and DC.
Wow.
So think about that. In a state where EV sales are the highest in the country, we got 7 million trapped people who can buy an EV, but they're going to be charging all the time at the local urbanized Walmart, or it's not highway charging. You're in a city and you got to charge there. If you could charge level 2, your costs are going to go down. Your convenience is going to go way up. For the cost of a 2-nozzle EV dispenser, if you amortize the whole cost of the station, most have 3. Now we're building 4 and 8, but let's take a 3-dispenser, 6-nozzle station. For the cost of one of those 2-nozzle high-speed dispensers in the Walmart parking lot, and I'm all for more high-speed stuff, you can permanently electrify 40 spaces in an apartment building, which is a game changer because the cost per nozzle is so much low with level 2. And we're working a lot on that here in California, too, where we got a lot of interest in the legislature. So I had the board governor trapped till the state cops rescued him at 93 minutes. He was an old EV1 driver, Newsom, too, so he gets EVs.
Yeah.
And I think we're making to get some real money to go to landlords and say, we know you're never going to pay to put in level 2 charging. We pay to install it, and the tenants pay for the power they use, and they pay the maintenance. And you can charge them $20 a month fee for the space. So you make a little money from it, and you agree to do it. So anyway, a lot of exciting things going on at the state level, but it's not the same as a federal subsidy. You're absolutely right.
No, it doesn't carry the same weight, but exciting nonetheless. And one more point on the municipal charging. You get the point extras from the utility companies involved. They get excited because they see, oh, here's a building of 30 people, all of who could have vehicles that could maybe be providing me some surplus when I need it.
Yeah, you can do the two-way too. We're still behind that in the market, but 4 years from now, that'll be a real thing.
Yeah. And to your point earlier about the technological leaps here coming, let's just highlight some good news coming out of our friends in Europe, right? We've got the Mercedes has a new EV platform. They've got a vehicle like the GLC. BMW has their Neue class launching with the iX3. Now, we're talking about vehicles that are at the premium end of the market, but they're not luxury. They're targeting $60,000 and lower, which sadly in our current American car market, it's just not far above the average. So they're competitive with their gas analogs, and we're talking about huge improvements. I feel bad for people with the last generation stuff because they're charging faster, they have more range. It's a lot better.
The Germans have gotten the Chinese wake-up call because they've been decimated in the Chinese market, which for both Mercedes and BMW, I believe, has been their largest market. So now the Americans have gotten the wake-up call, but they don't have the wake-up products yet. GM is a beat ahead. this new Ford EV with a radical new production system, I think is really important.
Yeah.
And really a breakthrough thing. People aren't paying enough attention to that because they focus on the product, which is still hazy. They're not focusing on the reinvented assembly line. They're taking half the parts and a third of the people of the process, which means you can start making low $30,000 competitive EVs just like the Chinese do.
Yeah.
So I think our wake-up stuff is still another product cycle away. But that BMW iX3, I called up my buddy, and I'll give him a plug because it's a good EV dealer, Valencia BMW. And I said, I want to be on the list. So I'm number one now to get one. And now I'm also on the list for a Gravity, which I pined for a long time. The problem with Lucid, and this has been a problem with Rivian too, like any startup, their design and their visionary stuff is a generation ahead of anybody. But their ability to manufacture, that's one thing the old folks at GM and Ford and
they can do.
Volkswagen and Mercedes, they know how to do. And so I don't know if there ever in the next 2 years will be a Gravity for me to get, but I'm going to have to decide between those two.
Yeah, truly special product at the premium end. But I'm glad you brought up the Ford thing, because if we're talking about mass moving of people into EVs, 7 million folks in California apartments, people across the country, Ford's upcoming platform that's going to power something in between a Maverick and a Ranger pickup truck and more vehicles with that fancy Doug Field tech software thing going on. That's a game changer. You're right. There's not the flashy product yet to show off at the auto show, but when Ford says something like that, they're pretty serious about it. They have shareholders to be accountable for, and their board of directors actually is accountable, unlike some companies in the auto space. So that's a big deal. And then across the pond, Volkswagen's got their ID1, which is supposed to be a $20,000-ish hatchback with Rivian software. So that's an exciting American
It's a great case study of how American tech can still do well. You know, all this stuff, and I wrote an op-ed in the LA Times about this. All the cutting edge tech in the battle with China is coming from California. I told the governor, get on this horse and ride. The Ford Skunk Works is in California because Jim Farley didn't want it in Detroit because he's trying to push a culture change.
Yeah.
Let the Detroit guys manufacture, but let design go to California. The Rivian architecture Volkswagen bought for, I think it was $4 billion, California. The Lucid powertrain, most advanced in the world, I think, in efficiency, California. Zoox and Waymo self-driving tech, California. So, increasing this is a California, Michigan, Georgia marriage of modern manufacturing and top-end research. There's also this magnet thing down in, and I think we put a blog post about it. It's worth a 1-minute plug. Dan Krasner, our ED, and I, we were invited down to the Magnet Conference in Atlanta a couple weeks ago to speak. And what happened there, and it's one of the most other exciting things akin to the Ford deal. And Ford was there, by the way. So was Kia, and I think Hyundai too. Anyway, the three governors down there, Republicans, Governor of Mississippi, who's got a bunch of manufacturing auto there, Governor of Alabama, Governor of Georgia got together, signed a memorandum linking their research universities. And they are focused like a laser on how do you mass produce new battery tech. It's not about new chemistry. A lot of work's already being done on that. It's about how do you industrialize it, which we don't know how to do in America. And we'll do less. So we just arrested all the Hyundai engineers in Georgia.
I want to get to the bad news there, but I want to
But anyway, they're doing incredible stuff. They have the most advanced electron microscope in the world, doing nothing but battery chemistry mass production tech. So our sleeping giant thing is happening here too. We're waking up. It's just Uncle Sam is not being helpful, being semi-helpful. Trump, I have to defend. Trump guys have been pretty good on batteries until this stupid Hyundai thing. But
if you say it's for defense, they love critical minerals. So I think the key is saying, But to summarize what you said, right? You get the software geniuses in California, you get the battery experts in Michigan, you've got Illinois, Normal, where the Rivian plant is. That's become the hot school to go to if you want to become a mechanical engineer or get a really good job working in a plant. So this is becoming a hot topic across multiple fronts. You're talking about IP, silicon, software, and the actual nuts and bolts of building this stuff all happening here. Now we got to get in the bad news part of the program. So I've really been following the story closely. It's interesting. It's depressing. It touches on so many themes that we've been parroting ever since we've been in business. And it's all about this Hyundai plant in Georgia. So you can tell listeners, in case they're not familiar, what exactly happened with these South Korean workers.
This thing It's really a Keystone Cops deal. So somebody at ICE, which unfortunately is an agency that's adopted with encouragement from a few people in the administration, a really bad culture. First of all, the first thing to remember is it's a construction site in partnership with LG, another big Korean battery maker, quote unquote, of this construction site. And allegedly, they found a few Latino guys who didn't have their documentation right. So they came rolling in and they scooped up those guys, but they thought, wow, there are a lot of Koreans around here too. And I'm sure even at the White House, they think some moron at the mid-level said, lock them up. The Koreans were technicians and subcontractor companies to LG and to the building contractors. They were installing the manufacturing equipment to make batteries, which is exactly what that Magnet Alliance is studying and how we can leapfrog ahead on that tech here. So these are sales engineers and technicians building very complicated, very expensive battery making equipment. The biggest problem in battery making is your yield, not unlike semiconductors. Oh my God, 1 out of 3 batteries we made don't work. You got to throw them out and try again. So it's all about having very precise manufacturing technology. It's a lot like making paper, by the way, which I learned at this conference, where most of the paper mills are in the South too. So there's another reason why it's a good region for battery making, because some of the same physical.
It's like paper, but 1,000 times thinner.
Yeah. They've got, when you got to laminate and temperature and material mix, it's tricky. So they started scooping up these Korean engineers, many of whom didn't speak English. And they basically put them in a pen like criminals, barbed wire. They got the whole ICE experience. And they wouldn't let anybody talk to them. It was really bad. And eventually the South Korean government, which appropriately went berserk, sent a charter plane with work from the council and everything. And they've lawyered up too. So there's going to be some of that, and sent them all back to Korea. Only one offered to stay, because at the end of it, the Trump guys stumbled along and offered an amnesty. Because believe me, somebody at the White House, probably in the Department of Energy, figured out how incredibly stupid this was. Now, meanwhile, if you're Hyundai, you've got a plan to get that plant online to hit production schedules. And now none of the technicians want to come back to the U.S. So guess what? The plant's not going to hit the schedule. It's terrible for them. And other companies in the battery space who are foreign are thinking, we could be next. So this is really bad, a huge unforced error. And President Trump came out today and did a bit of an I Love Korea speech. He won't admit they made a mistake, because like most hugely insecure people, he can't admit that. But this thing was basically from an American national interest point of view, and for companies that are our allies or our domestic companies. We took out a 9mm Glock from an ICE agent. We shot Uncle Sam in the feet 2 different times. So big loss for USA, big embarrassment, and unnecessary.
Yeah, and just a procedural note here, I'll point this out as a law student. There was some legitimate ambiguity about the visas these engineers had. I think it was the B1, I believe, but basically
Right.
It's very hard to get the long-term sought after visas, the H1s that everyone wants in the
There
tech
was
industry.
no criminal intent. They had
they had visas, and
they were playing by
arguably,
the rules, but the rules are murky.
well, people argue maybe it's a tourist visa, but it's also meant to be like a conference business visa. So the argument they were making was, we're training workers, it's temporary, this is exactly the domain of it. And lawyers could argue about this thing both ways, but this is not the thing, as you said, from a policy point of view. This is not the area you want to suddenly be enforcing immigration law in a really heavy-handed way against one of our most strategically important national allies, skilled workers who are not committing any crimes. They're upskilling American workers.
They're bringing tech here that we need in order to leapfrog.
And my favorite quote, last week was Howard Lutnick saying they should have called me for visas, which is, I don't know where to begin with that.
Because I'm so important. The Trump thing, ego is the glue that holds that cabinet together, that and obsequience. The whole thing just, again, the loser is America, the winner's China. And Mitt Romney, when he ran for president, had a great idea, because Mitt's a grown-up, which was, if you're a foreign national with an advanced degree in sciences, come here, clear a background check, and get citizenship instantly. Because, hey, why don't we pick up 20,000 biochemists and computer coders and material sciences?
Yeah.
Because they'd love to live here.
And calling balls and
strikes.
idea. It's a
Yeah.
big deal in the MAGA community because Trump's got this coalition, and lots of these folks, I mean, maybe not Elon so much anymore, but like the All In podcast folks, these venture capital guys were actually pointing out, hey, this is a bad thing. Lots of the people who are otherwise very pro-MAGA were alarmed at this because this is directly contradicting Trump's rhetoric, which is all about industrial policy. We're bringing jobs
Yeah.
here. This was a bad move.
Yeah. The problem is Donald Trump does not understand manufacturing at all. He's one of these guys who's often wrong, but always certain. And he doesn't understand it takes 7 years to build a manufacturing plant. And you have to build a supplier park around it. He doesn't understand how integrated North American supply chain is. Now we've thrown a monkey wrench into it. 1 out of 5 auto suppliers in Michigan is now in financial distress. More layoffs are coming. He says he's building new auto plants. No, all the new auto plants under construction are battery electric plants for the most part, and a few modernization projects. And he's trying to kill all those. So even though his rhetoric is build American manufacturing, he's anthrax for American manufacturing. And of course, the tariffs are a huge problem.
Yeah, but do you think, like optimistically speaking as a hack, is messaging this flip, Trump realizing, oh, this is an important thing, foreign workers, you are welcome here for a short time, to train American workers. Do you think this is maybe Trump having a mea culpa moment and that the administration's going to hopefully engage with South Korea?
He's self-aware enough to do that.
But he doesn't have to be. If you're South Korea, you can be like Tim Cook.
I think the White House is sending a signal to ICE. You just go to construction sites on the border and chase Mexican guys. Don't deal with any of these technical people. So my guess is, though it's never certain because you always have a mid-level moron in these bureaucracies, no shortage, but my guess is we will not have another one of these problems. Will that be enough, and how long will it take to be able to get the Hyundais and the LGs and their suppliers, the people who build the lines and install the equipment, to get people to agree to come back?
Yeah.
Because without the skill there, the equipment's not going to get installed and the factory's not going to open.
Yeah, in South Korea, their officials said they're looking at human rights violations that may have happened.
Yeah.
The people, while they were detained, they weren't great conditions. You can read all about it on X or Twitter.
And they have their own politics in South Korea, where now their politicians have to please the home crowd, which is very angry about this.
Nonetheless, all this bad news aside, we are still very lucky in America. We are the world's second largest auto market, or probably the world's most profitable potential auto market. And so lots of people want to be here, even all of this lunacy aside. I make the Tim Cook analogy, like obviously he's on our soil, but he's done a very good job of speaking the Trump lingo, kissing up and saying, yes, Supreme Leader, we'll build all the factories here.
You're handsome.
We're investing all the money, and the Wall Street Journal has reported how a lot of that's pre-committed stuff and some very clever accounting. They've done a good job of messaging that do you think the automakers, Hyundai included, could do a better job of petitioning themselves?
I'm aware of some of the conversations, and no, they're yesing him to death. I wish they put up a bigger fight on the subsidy bill. They were willing to make most of them, and there was not one opinion within the auto industry. There's a lot of frustration with General Motors, and it's a complicated family thing. What they really wanted was the CAFE mileage standards and the emission credits to go away, because that's a huge. If you look in the Dream Journal of one of the old Detroit Big Threes, if a magic hobo landed and said, I'll grant you 2 wishes, wish 1 would be let the UAW organize Tesla in California to make Tesla pay the same labor rate we do. And number 2 was, Elon, we propped up Tesla with all these emission credits tremendously. Let's get out of that business. Because Tesla, which I'm all for, was the great revolutionary company in EVs. But they have no doubt, their key business was corporate welfare. That was it. Cars were second. And the companies had to pay billions to Tesla because of the emission credit scheme to incentivize them. And that they were not happy to see that go away. So those short-term wins were enough for them not to fight to the death on some of the other stuff.
Yeah, they nullified the penalties and they removed the CAFE emissions waiver scheme. And also California's whole waiver program in the first place. So now those HOV stickers that I know many people in California love, those aren't going to apply because that Clean Air Act authority does't exist at the state level anymore. And that's...
I know. I'm going to have to get out of the HOV lane in my EV. I'm not happy.
Make some new friends in LA. Who knows? But yeah, it's rough for sure for states that like Newsom and other governors who do want to do the right thing here, who see the industry potential. It's tough, but let's try to end on some good news. We talked
Mm-hmm.
about some of the market developments happening, the Ford project in California. Are there other
And
pieces?
GM, their lobbying shop can be trouble, but I got to say the product thing and what they're doing, particularly in Cadillac. My neighbor, after endless nudging from me, just bought a Cadillac EV and is charging on my front driveway right now. He gets his level 2 installed. We
Nice.
have 2 in our neighborhood, 2 Cadillacs now, EVs. So on the product side, salute to General Motors. They're doing really well. Stellantis is kind of hopeless in the U.S., but give them time. But I think Volkswagen's in a big turn. BMW just hit a massive home run. Mercedes is going around. Ulla Kallenhaus there, at the worldwide CEO of Mercedes, is a total EV guy. And I think their next product generation is going to be really strong. So the product pipeline is miles ahead of where it was 4 years ago.
Yeah, and that shows you that the market is working and doing its function, and it's disproportionate. We're seeing for huge EV growth in China, very substantial EV growth in Europe, and just modest here in the US. But that's with all of these headwinds in place. And so I think it's going to be very interesting to see after this hot September, like you said, in going to Q1 next year. Will the sales keep up? Probably not. We're probably not going to grow. The hope is that things
I
don't
think we might
shrink.
grow at a slower rate, but that's the question.
Yeah.
Or will we have negative growth, flat growth, slower growth? I don't think we'll have the growth we've been having. I think you're totally right about that. Hey, the other good news?
What?
I just completed the second part of my annual EV fast charging drive across the country mega sweepstakes. I drove a BMW iX from rural New Hampshire to Minnesota, Minneapolis, Burnsville, and then all the way back to Los Angeles. And this time I literally programmed the apps to avoid Electrify America. One, because while they've been getting better, I still have trouble at plenty of their stations. They're just, they're frustrating. But they are getting better, but they're not great. But I wanted to try a bunch of the new stuff. And now there's a ton of new stuff all over really Western New York. There's a company called Charge Smart with Autel equipment. It all worked perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's the Mercedes stations. I stopped at Iona stations, which were great. There was Red E, which in the Midwest is starting to grow. Also a lot of Autel equipment there. The new GM EV Go stuff, like on the Ohio Turnpike, all has canopies.
Yep.
Works perfectly.
Yep.
I have not had a bad EV Go experience in over a year. I literally prefer that now in California to Electrify America. So the charging thing is opening up. And other than, of course, one Electrify America station, even stopping at a few Ford dealers for the Ford charge stuff, which all works fine,
Mm-hmm.
it was easy to drive more than across the country in a CC SUV.
Yeah, and that's one that can't charge a Tesla. BMW can't do that
Right.
yet. And you weren't stopping to Electrify America. You were still able to charge really well. I love that. Just one nitpick here as a penny pincher myself, a grad student. I love the EVgo stations. Their pricing model is a little bit on the higher end of things. I've been using a lot of the Tesla stations because they know that higher utilization leads to fewer charges for them once you spread it out across all the equipment and all the
Yeah,
usage
no, I agree. I think
scenarios.
what EVgo is trying to do is show a revenue bump.
They badly need cash, and I understand their
Well,
position.
they've got to be able to go to Wall Street and say, look, this can be a profitable business, so give us more money to build more stations. It's a tricky balance.
We need more Mike Murphys out there, the EVgo, subsidizing them so that I can get a cheaper
They got
rate.
me for a couple. And I still get the free charging
Yeah.
at Electrify America, but I wanted just for what I do in this sector and as a consultant to some of the companies, I wanted to experience other stuff. So I just decided I'd pay more to try more things. But I probably did six Electrify America charges and 5 were fine.
Yeah. And I used to hate Kansas having to drive through it from Colorado to the East Coast. I love it now because it's full of Iona stations and they're all remarkable.
Yeah, this stuff is great.
Yeah. Good news on charging. The market's figuring it out. We'll get over the crazy stuff. Hopefully we just stop spitting in our allies' faces. Thanks so much for coming on, Mike.
Thank you for hosting the podcast. We have a lot of great plans for this.
And just like that, it's a wrap on Directly Current. Till I see you again in 2 weeks, I've been Max Patton. We're presented by EVs for All America. We'll link that in the description, as well as the stories and things that Mike referenced. Please look in the show notes for that. And please do subscribe to us in your podcast platform of choice or listen on YouTube if you want to see our cool merch in this episode. If you're interested in getting an EV with those tax credits, please do that before that next episode comes out, though. September 30th is your deadline to have a contract in ink and a deposit put down. Thanks so much for watching/listening, and again, I'll see you in 2 weeks.